before I got to Australia, I had somewhere else I wanted to visit first: Hong Kong. Why? Well, back when I was still working in the UK, one night I was riding my bike back from work. It was dead late, maybe 4 in the morning, and I remember I heard this song. And for whatever reason, I just thought, as I said, I have a really vivid imagination, and I was listening and I was like, for some reason I'm sort of picturing Hong Kong. No idea why, just how the song sort of, the images that came to my head as I was listening to this song. And I was like, I'm gonna go to Hong Kong and I'm gonna film something and use this music with it. And I basically convinced myself, I was like, yep, I'm gonna go to Hong Kong and I'm gonna do that. And just having that as a goal, like, it just used to drive me to work every day. Like, if I didn't want to go to work, I just think about that and it's like, no, come on, you're doing this for a reason. You want to go there and do this. So yeah, that's why I was in Hong Kong. I made 2 videos here. One using the song I just talked about to show the city at night. And another to show the city by day.
Lord, hear me now. Young boats and English boys.
From a technical point of view, they're pretty average, pretty bad to be honest. But for me, looking back on them now, they're special to me because they represent something very, very raw and very innocent. That trip was really special for me. Hong Kong was breathtaking. It was the furthest I had ever been away from home. My first time in Asia. Everything was new. It was a real assault on all of my senses. The people spoke languages I couldn't even begin to understand. On the streets there were smells I'd never smelt. Bright neon lights, honking horns and huge towering skyscrapers that disappeared into this grey swirling mist of the harbour. Somewhere up there were dragons. This was one of the first times I experienced the high of travel. For 5 days, this metropolis was my playground. I stayed out all day and night, sailing on the ferry, exploring all these back alleys and streets, just looking up at these huge skyscrapers, rushing through subway tunnels, navigating street markets. It was a real whirlwind, and I did my best to capture it all on my very crappy Nikon D5200. That was my first camera.
Late in a star's light, it begins to explode. And all the people in a dream wait for the machine to pick the shit up, leave it clear.
I remember on my very first day, I went up to Victoria's Peak, which has this incredible view across the whole city. It's an iconic view, and I was being a tourist, so go figure. So yeah, I made my way up there, and I wrote a blog about this experience, which I want to read you a bit of it now. After a short while at the crowded summit, I found myself wandering away from the main area along the not so well known Lugard Road. Lugard? I think that's how you say that. Here, I was away from the crowds and had this most gorgeous of views to myself. As I mentally whipped out my bucket list and struck this one off, I was genuinely smiling to myself. It hadn't been the easiest journey, not by any means. I was tired and groggy, and the work that had been put in to get to this point had nearly broken me. I think I'm being a little dramatic here. But I was finally here. I had arrived in Hong Kong, and I was doing exactly what I'd been dreaming of for the past year. I was living my dream. Everything that I'd been working towards culminated in this moment. This was why I hadn't given up. The thoughts of being nervous and scared on that tube train in London 24 hours before were suddenly, once again, rather ridiculous. I like that. I think I'm a good writer, eh? Like, I need to get back into writing. Those thoughts where I was nervous and worried, like, that was just natural, obviously. I think everyone would feel that in that situation. I'm sure those of you watching who have done this, you probably felt the same way at some point. In the beginning of the trip, I was definitely nervous about solo travel, like going by myself. I didn't know. I was always asking, like, oh, how are you going to make friends? Like, won't you be lonely? You know, like, I didn't know if I was going to go out there and make friends. So going out on your own, it did seem like a ballsy move, and I always had that at the back of my mind. And a lot of people always ask me the same questions, like, don't you want to go with someone else? Like, aren't you going to be lonely? How are you going to make friends? That was always there. And this is one of the first things that travel taught me, really. And that is that wherever you are on this planet, you can always make friends. No matter where you are, what you're doing, you can always meet people. And we're all a lot similar than a lot of people realise. We're all the same. In Hong Kong, at the hostel I was staying at, I met a guy called Adrian. Literally, the only photo I have of this guy is one of him falling asleep on a bus that we were travelling around the city on. But yeah, he was the first person I met on my travels. I did mention him in my Hong Kong blog, and I wanted to read you a little bit of that as well. So this is what I wrote about Adrian. He was the true epitome of a traveller. Go to a place without any real plans and just wander, explore, take it all in, and roll with whatever you happen to discover. Indeed, on hearing my plans for Australia, he told me, if there's one thing I can say, is don't plan too much. Things change every day. Adrian was a very seasoned traveller, and for no reason at all, he took me under his wing and showed me around Hong Kong. He became my guide, and he looked after me. For no reason. He didn't need to do that, but he did. And from that moment on, I knew that, yeah, I was going to be able to meet people and make friends wherever I went, and that put my mind at ease. That was actually the beauty of travel, was meeting people. I hadn't realised this before, but yeah, meeting Adrian in Hong Kong was a really positive experience, and I was like, cool, I'll just be able to do this wherever I go. We even had time to catch up for 16 hours in Kuala Lumpur after Hong Kong, because we were both on layovers. I was on the way to Australia. So yeah, again, I hung out with him there, and then I never saw him again. When I got to Australia, I was on what they call a working holiday visa. I immediately went to live with my uncle and his family. They lived a short 4-hour bus ride out of Melbourne in a place called Gippsland. It's about as far south as you can go in mainland Australia, tucked right above Tasmania.
bags?
I have no bag.
Hi.
Which one's yours?
These three. Yeah.
This was an experience like nothing else I'd ever had. This was proper country living. They lived in a little place called Alberton, and I wrote a blog about this as well, so I thought I'd read it. This will give you an idea of what it was like to live in Alberton. The town in which we live is the perfect summary of rural Australia. Alberton sits directly on the South Gippsland Highway, the main road and artery for the whole area. Everything feeds off and onto this main road, including the bus to and from Melbourne. Along this particular stretch of highway where Alberton is placed sits the local primary school, the general store / post office, and the pub. And, well, that's it. One school, one shop, one pub. Sitting further back from this are the houses, including ours, all with their own piece of land. I'm trying my hardest not to keep comparing this with old school America, but it does invoke those ideals that drove Lenny and George in Of Mice and Men. The idea that everyone is entitled to their fair share of the American dream, living off the fat of the land. That's how it felt. I actually slept right here in this caravan on the left, and yes, there were spiders.
Fucking God, I was just on my laptop and this, I kid you not, this has just dropped. Fuck you, you fuck, oh my. This is like the 6th time I've taken this video because I keep fucking pranging out. I was lying literally right there and it just dropped down from the ceiling. I need to go and get something to get him out, but I'm worried if I take my eyes off him, he's gonna move somewhere. I'm just gonna put like a hat on top of him to stop him getting away. Okay, this will do. Okay. He is huge. Not today though, mate. Not today. Just started checking my room for more spiders and there's one right there. Oh my God, look what happens when I turn the light off my phone. It's like a fucking oh, this is like a horror film, man. No.
The main reason I was here was because if you wanted to stay for a second year on your working holiday visa in Australia, you had to do 3 months worth of rural farm work. Basically, if you didn't do that in your first year, no second year. You just had to go, that was it. See ya. So, because of this, my Uncle Chris had very kindly got me a job at the local tree nursery where he worked. So yeah, this is going to be my rural work. It was basically a huge tree plantation, and it is unlike any other job I've ever worked before. I loved it. Basically, the tree nursery grew these small trees that you could then you cut the branches off and they would be little tree saplings. They replanted these tree saplings and let them grow for a year, and a year later it was our job to rip them out of the ground. Literally every day for 4 months, me and a crew of 15 others would get on a bus, drive out to the middle of a huge field and start ripping these trees out of the ground. We'd then pack the trees into these boxes. The boxes were loaded onto big trucks, driven away to another part of Victoria and replanted, growing into bigger trees. Physically, it was really hard work. And I remember, like, we basically in the mornings we had to do this warm-up routine to get our bodies moving and warm the muscles up.
Everyone's warming up, ready for a new day of pulling up trees. Fucking yes, mate, yes!
I just thought it was the funniest thing ever. Like, all these people, different shapes and sizes, from different walks of life, all of us in these high-vis outfits, and we were stood in a field at 8 AM in the morning doing these wacky moves. I'll never forget that.
Stretching those hamstrings. Oh yeah.
My teenage dream was to marry Pixie.
And then there was the time when a storm came through and we were all caught in it in the middle of the field.
It does look a bit stormy, doesn't it?
Basically, the more boxes of trees you could get done, the better. You had to put 100 trees into one box. That was a completed box. You'd write your number, like 12 or 4, whatever number you were, you'd write that on the box, and then they know that was you. And you had to hit a quota of 38 boxes a day, which was definitely manageable. And once you did that, any boxes you did after that, you get paid an extra $2 per box on top of your hourly wage, which was already $32 an hour. So it was basically really, really good pay. Like, I was saving a lot. I was making thousands of Australian dollars. Living out in a place like that, I couldn't spend it either. There was literally nothing to do, and I was living with family, so the rent was cheap. The other brilliant part of all of this was that I got to know my Uncle Chris. I got to know my Australian family. Chris had moved out to Australia when I was maybe 3 or 4 years old, so I'd never really had the chance to get to know him properly.
Still working?
Yeah, it's alright. Brakes need a bit of a touch-up.
On the weekends, we would explore the local area in his big, hauled Land Rover Defender. I love those cars. I know I just said that there was nothing to do here, but there was loads of stuff to do. It just didn't require any money, which was awesome. It would be me, Chris, and my little cousin Francis. We would go off on these adventures in the Land Rover. I have fond memories of, there was a little town just down the road called Port Albert, and that had what is apparently the best fish and chips in Australia, certainly Victoria. Just little things like that. And on the topic of food, my auntie Melissa, she was an incredible cook, a really talented chef, and she would make the most beautiful food. So I was eating amazingly. And then there was Percy the dog. It was like a home away from home, my Australian family.
Previous occasion. You're under a cloud amid speculation former Chelsea manager Jose Mourinho is set to take over at Old Trafford. Van Gaal says it's the fans who deserve this win the most.
I think the fans are more concerned about the title
No, I won't.
than I. Because a title for the fans is...
All the times we would head off on epic camping trips into the Alpine National Park, which kind of straddles Victoria and New South Wales. And obviously I wrote a blog about this. I want to read you a little bit of that now. There's something very special about camping to me. It's my favourite activity. I'm not too sure if I can put my finger on exactly what it is, but I absolutely love it. I love heading out into the vast wilderness, losing signal on your phone, being miles from any civilization. I love falling back to the innate, raw connection with nature. It's just you, man, in his element. Map reading, exploring, collecting firewood.
don't want it crashing down. No, we're going to put it down there fucking slow, aren't we? No, here we go, do that. Fuck, I'm going to get hurt if I get in there. Keep away from it. I'm going to have to let go now. Let it go slowly, don't we? She's down, Carol. She's down.
Blimey.
And cooking beautiful meats over the fire you've built is not for everyone, but personally, I don't think you can beat it. Some of my fondest memories from Australia were of me and the family in that big old Land Rover, roaring up the sides of mountains and back down into the valleys. It was how I had always imagined freedom and adventure. And with this freedom and adventure, I had the time now to make these little videos and experiments with filmmaking.
I am counting down all of my days.
Even closer to home were all these incredible national parks. Taraborga was one of my favourites, and excuse the pun, but around this time drones were really taking off. So yeah, I got a drone because I was saving all this money. I was able to invest in my filmmaking gear, and the first time I made a film with the drone was when I went to Taraborga. Looking back, none of these films are any good at all, really. But that's okay, you know, that's the reason, that was the point. Like, they were supposed to suck. That was fine, because this was my learning curve, you know, this is when I was figuring it out, experimenting with filmmaking, having fun, just finding out what I enjoyed doing and what I enjoyed making. So yeah, that's absolutely fine. Everyone has to start somewhere, you know, even Steven Spielberg, he started somewhere. And these were my very first films. This is my starting point. After working completely flat out for a few months, I had all this money. I was rich. I was like, whoa! So yeah, me and my mates, we decided that we would meet up in Vietnam and do a little trip there. Each year, me and my friends, we'd always done like a summer holiday or some sort of trip away at least once a year, and we wanted to keep up that tradition. So yeah, we decided we were going to go to Vietnam. I jumped on a plane and The Bajans was born. Hey, welcome to Vietnam. I'm currently awaiting the arrival of The Bajans. I haven't seen them for about 6 months, so it should be good. Could get emotional.
Okay. I can see him. The base! How are we doing, boys?
It's the worst of days.
Oh no, such a small
Yes. Everyone is fine.
Oh yeah.
Vietnam. What can I say about Vietnam that hasn't been said?
It's all good. Sometimes talking gives it more soul, you know?
In the morning, when the honor wakes me up, we can do it all again because it's just the two of us. I hit the highway and laugh, cause we up. Caught in traffic, but it ain't slowing me up. I took my foot off the gas to ease up. Got no worries because we ain't in a rush.
This felt very much like a coming of age trip. None of us had ever really been backpacking before, especially not in Southeast Asia. So this is a real first taste of that, and it showed.
Cross the road, boys.
You gonna cross?
Yeah? You need to cross.
Lead the way. Lead the way, mate.
No. You first.
Okay.
If you've ever been to Vietnam or anywhere in Southeast Asia, you'll know that traffic is just chaos. It makes crossing the road very, very interesting. I'd obviously done a little bit of exploring in Hong Kong, but a city like that was very much like East meets West. Vietnam was the real deal. We spent about 2.5 weeks traveling the length of the country from top to bottom, and we learned a lot. We slept on night trains. I remember that night because we couldn't sleep. We'd had a few beers, played some cards, and then we walked the length of the train, basically horrified by how these people were managing to sleep on these wooden benches. It was a very strange experience. Night buses, that was literally the worst sleep of my life, ever.
It's 11 o'clock. We've been on here for 5 hours. How's everyone doing?
We're not even halfway through.
7 more hours to go.
I lost my phone, which was pretty stressful.
I lost my phone, so now we're fucked.
We got ripped off by a guy called Mr. Calculate.
Within a minute of stepping off the train, we found ourselves in a cafe opposite the station. Like lambs to the slaughter, we'd been lured into the lion's den. Meet Mr. Calculate. He could barely conceal the dollar signs rolling in his eyes. Christmas had come early. Mr. Calculate, the very first local we met in Hue, miraculously crunched some numbers and sorted us out with a hostel, motorbikes for the next day, and a night bus service to our next destination. We didn't question a thing.
And by the way,
We literally we walked out of the train station into their cafe
And by the way, we've got a
and
toilet.
gave them all that money.
That's basically what happened.
Basically, all the things that you would expect to happen on a backpacking trip with 6 British lads, it happened. The highs were also unreal. The day we took out little scooters and rode the High Van Pass was an amazing experience. Half of us had never even driven a scooter before, so it was just a really funny day. Halong Bay was stunning.
In the moonlight,
We spent 3 days there sailing past these huge, towering islands of limestone, kayaking, exploring caves, swimming, buying Pringles.
When you're on the boats, you get these people which come up to the side of the boat with a floating shop.
Bit much. Feels a minute.
How much is he selling for? Hello. How much?
100.
I'm okay, thank you.
100.
Then there was the war tunnels.
That was unreal. Oh my god.
That was cool, wasn't it?
That was good fun. Thank you for saving my glasses.
I don't get how they lived on there.
They lived on there for 26 days.
Oh my god.
No, but they'd have
That's like a full. Look at me.
They'd have bigger parts where they'd sit.
Were they genuine ones or were they other people?
Those are genuine.
That's a genuine one, but they've made it bigger.
Oh my god.
Tourists.
It was a real whirlwind of an adventure that brought us closer together. It's a trip I will never, ever forget.
Overlook, cause I'm with you in the days and I'm loving the morning, in the morning, in the morning, in the morning, hey.
And I filmed the whole thing. This was basically my first, this is my very first travel series on YouTube. The original Dubasians. I remember when I got home from Vietnam, I went straight back to Chris and Melissa's and I spent 2 weeks editing flat out. I just hunkered down in the house and was just editing the whole time. And that was a really good learning experience for me. Back in Australia, having edited this series, I wanted a change from the rural way of life. I was hungry to live in a big world city. I hadn't really had that before. Melbourne was the answer. By coincidence, at the same time, there was another guy that I knew from Liverpool who was living in Melbourne. I met him through Instagram, Brad Longworth. We'd never met whilst we were both living in Liverpool, so Melbourne was the first time. We were on really similar paths in terms of travel, chasing our creative dreams, and it felt nice to meet like-minded people. Just to shoot the shit really and share your experiences and learn from each other. It's nice sort of being in a team and chasing your dreams, you know? So whilst I was working in Alberton, on the odd weekend I would catch the bus back to Melbourne. Myself, Brad and John, who was another traveller that Brad had met on his journey, we would basically just explore Melbourne and shoot as much as we could, just sort of experimenting with photography. It was really cool. We started getting into a thing called roof-topping, and I'm just reading what the definition is here. Roof-topping is the heart-stopping photography movement which involves thrill-seekers climbing to the top of city skyscrapers, hanging off the edge and taking pictures of the spectacular view beneath them. Sounds pretty dangerous, pretty risky. It wasn't quite like that. I don't think any of us ever hung off the edge. It wasn't that extreme, although people did do that. But yeah, we would basically, we just spent all night exploring Melbourne CBD, the central business district. We would try and find high-rise car parks, get some cool angles, and then we would basically, I was going to say break in. We wouldn't break in. We just sort of snuck into high-rise buildings. So say if someone who had a key fob for the door, we would sort of follow them in after they tapped in, and you go up in the lift, and then you get out and you try and find the fire escape in the building, and then you climb all the way to the top of the fire escape and hope that the door is open. Really, really fun times. it's another perfect example of how this period of my life it allowed me to just experiment with my camera and just get to grips with what photography was and what filmmaking was, and that's really important. So anyway, when I came back from Vietnam, Brad was off to go and do his rural farm work so that he could get the second year on the visa. So yeah, he left Melbourne, and when I came back from Vietnam, I took over the letting arrangement he had for a flat there, and it was insane. It was a high-rise building, lots of apartments. I couldn't believe my luck. It had this incredible rooftop swimming pool with views out across the whole city. It blew my mind. I was basically living this crazy high-flying lifestyle, but I was a backpacker who was very, very poor in the grand scheme of things.
One of my favourite things about this place was that you could actually get up onto the very top of the roof, going through the fire exit. It was one of the most beautiful views of the whole of Melbourne, and I spent many sunsets up there taking photos and filming. It's actually the same place me and Brad shot that rooftoping video. Melbourne is often voted as the most livable city in the world, and I really got a taste of that during my time here. It's a beautiful place.
Whilst living here in Melbourne, I had another job at a warehouse. And basically it was a Christmas hamper company. So it was seasonal work in the lead up to Christmas. Their whole business model was that they made these Christmas hampers, and then businesses and people all around Australia ordered them for Christmas. So yeah, it was huge business. Like must have been hundreds of thousands of Christmas hampers, and my job was to make these hampers. Very random. It didn't pay as well as the tree nursery did, but it still allowed me to save. The good times and memories kept on rolling. Once Brad had finished his rural work, we decided to head to Sydney for New Year's. We both wanted to tick that off our bucket list.
Ain't easy being you, that much I know. Walked through the door and fell right through the floor. Can you feel me at all? Can you feel me at all? Can you feel me at all? Can you feel me at all?
Seeing the New Year fireworks over the Harbour Bridge and Sydney Opera House, that had been on our bucket list, both of us. You know, that had been a dream for both of us when we were planning our Australian adventures. This was a big deal for us.
There's 19 hours until the fireworks, but we're already here because apparently it gets very, very busy. So yeah, we're trying to get a good spot. This way? Sweet. Yeah, it's going to be hectic and a long day of waiting. 19 hours for some fireworks. How are you feeling about that, Brad?
Not very good.
Not very good. Alright, let's go find a spot as well.
The funny thing is, this trip didn't really end up being about the fireworks. It was all about the people that we met. Because we were cheap, broke backpackers, we decided that we would try and go to one of the only places you could see the fireworks for free, and to even have the slightest remote chance of seeing anything, you had to get there super early.
Good morning. Hello. Again.
Alright mate, this is it. Been queuing for about half an hour.
Whilst in that queue, we met a bunch of really cool people, and through our shared pain of having to wait over 12 hours for these fireworks, we just had a blast and we became friends.
Can you feel me at all? Can you feel me at all? Can you feel me at all? Can you feel me at all?
Kevin! We have waited 16 hours! 16 long hours. It's finally upon us! 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Can you feel me at all? Can you feel me at all? Can you feel me at all?
By the time it hit midnight, we literally couldn't care less about the fireworks. They were over there somewhere just behind the trees, but yeah, we were all just drunk, having a party, like, it was perfect. It was the perfect New Year's in Sydney. Literally, you couldn't write it. Like, it just couldn't have gone any better.
What a day to be alive.
You boys ready for a road trip? Yes!
In January of 2017, me, Nico and Brad took a few days off and headed down the Great Ocean Road.
Huh? Get the oil.
If you're wondering who Nico is, by the way, he's our Colombian flatmate. We were living with him during this time we were in Melbourne. He's a great guy.
Did you know if you don't get a picture with the sign that you have to, like, you haven't actually done the Great Ocean Road if you don't get a picture?
I'll get a picture.
Yeah.
I have to be with Brad or?
Yeah, I think Brad has to take a picture.
Yeah?
Yeah. Come on! There we go, doing the Great Ocean Road just to prove I'm here.
Like camping, I love road trips. There's literally nothing better than cruising along a beautiful road, windows down, tunes playing. You've got your mates with you having a laugh.
How do you feel about seeing your first kangaroos in the wild, Nico?
It's amazing. They look like little dinosaurs.
Little dinosaurs.
And we really did wing this. We would spend all day exploring, and then at night we would just find a quiet spot to pull over, whip the seats back, and just try and get a few hours sleep. It was such a good time.
You're right there, mate.
Thank you.
What are you doing?
If I just can spread my legs, I'm going to do this.
So,
what are you trying to do?
This is our sleeping situation. We have
1,
2 in the front, leaning the passenger seats back, and Nico is.
Nico is in where?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be lying across the back. So yeah, it's pretty rough. We're all pretty tired. Long day.
We just
Stop.
hate the system to all followers in YouTube, Instagram, people who are watching us. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being here. We hate the fucking his hotels are for fucking pussies.
Yeah, it's true.
Fucking that's not tourism. That's not traveling, for God's sake. That's not.
This is traveling. This is the real deal, mate.
So, take your fucking money. Go on travel.
Yeah. We'll see you in the morning.
XOXO.
It reminds me of my favourite quote from Jack Kerouac's On the Road. All he needed was a wheel in his hand and 4 on the road.
Okay, now we are on day 3 and it's 6:30 in the morning. It's fucking cold. Very, very cold. How cold do you need? Very cold. And we're gonna go check out the 12 Apostles.
This period of travelling gave me new friends and family. I got to know so many beautiful, amazing people, and I'm so grateful they came into my life. I've found my groove on this adventure and I was enjoying every second of it. It had also allowed me the time and space to really focus on getting creative, experimenting with photography and filmmaking, just having fun. That first year in Australia was so special to me. It was a very important part of my development.